Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. And as I have always mentioned to you, that in our conversations, we have conversations which create an impact and implication for everybody. Everything that happens to us, every news, every view, every technology, every medicine makes an impact and implication. Every advancement in thoughts and processes leads an impact and implication for someone or somebody. And today we are going to talk about one of the things that has concerned me a lot. And having been in this country for as many as 30 years, I've seen the drift happen. From once upon a time, nobody cared about India and Hindus. Today, India and Hindus are in the center of the conversation everywhere. And it is interesting and bothersome. Because on the one hand, there is a tremendous amount of recognition that we Indians have in this part of the world. And I have shared with many of you before, and I'll say it again. As a senator once told me, that we love you Indians as immigrants to the country. You are professionals, you are educated, you work hard, you are in the highest median income, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are least problem as a law and order guys. Yeah, apart from occasional white collar crime or whatever that is. And you ask for nothing. You are the perfect immigrant to this country. You contribute so much to the society. But today we are looking at a scenario in which everything that we are made to feel as if we are weirdos. In the name of, there is a concerted attack. It is not an isolated event. It's a very concerted attack on things India, things Hindu, as I prefer to call it. And what is also very important is, for the first ever time, I'm witnessing the rise of the Indians in this part of the world, especially Hindus in the world, because they are the ones who are under attack, rising up. And thanks to technology, the voice carries further, deeper, and distances in more ways than one. So to discuss these issues in full ramifications and its impact, I have great privilege in having three guests today. And considering the importance of the thing, I have pleasure in welcoming Mr. Rajeev Singh. He's the third time he is with us on this show. He's in the senior leadership role with Hindu American Foundation. I have the pleasure of welcoming Rasita for the first time. Rasita lives in Fairfax near Washington, DC. In terms of her job profile, she is a communication and media advisor for a shipping company. And she's a PhD, a doctorate, and a very deeply involved in matters relating to our faith, and a warrior, if I may call you that, Rasita ji. Third gentleman is Dinesh Neelavar ji. Dinesh ji lives in San Francisco, and he is a technology expert, entrepreneur, and a sincere knowledge of geopolitics. He and I have been connecting very often on our WhatsApp groups, where he throws about very significant light on the geopolitical insights that he has shown before. So I would like everybody to contribute your best to the conversation about my thought processes. Is Hinduism facing an existential threat? Why there is so much attack on things Hindu? So much so that a peace-loving organization called Hindu American Foundation, which exclusively participates in policy making and opinions, transformative work in the legislative agenda, they had to file a cease and desist order. And I wanted Rajiv to throw some light on it. What led you to? And I'm very happy that HAF took that action. So share with the audience what provoked, what was the tipping point, what was the last straw on the camel's back that made you act in the manner that you acted. And congratulations in advance for doing so.
Well, thank you for the encouragement, Vibhuti Ji, and thank you for inviting me back to your program. I think it is appropriate for me to say at this point that building on the thesis that you have, which is Hinduism under existential attack, anybody who stands for the Hindus, who speaks for the Hindus, is pretty much under attack. Not just Hindus, it could be people of any faith, it could be people in any part of the world. That said, when you are an agency or an organization that presents the voice of over 3 million Hindus in the United States, you are bound to be attacked and are continuously, unfortunately, under attack all the time. It just so happened that over the last 6 months to a year, several anti-Hindu and especially anti-India agencies have been attacking HAF with insinuations, with allegations about HAF being supported by the so-called right-wing Hindu nationalists. And Al Jazeera ran stories as well. Audrey Trushke got into a Twitter not argument, but allegation rampage against one of the board members of HAF. And many other things happened, but they just happened all at once. And then there was kind of this allegation of funds around the COVID relief, the PPE, so to say, that funds that came, and there were allegations against HAF, which were baseless, that that money has been utilized by HAF, when in reality, like any employer would take advantage, HAF did, and so did other agencies as well. But this was a targeted attack on HAF, and that is why HAF had to react with a cease and desist order.
Now, when there is a false attack like that, for financial impropriety, can you sue them for defamation?
Well, I'm not a legal expert, but I think the right way to go about it is exactly what HAF did, which is give them an opportunity to cease and desist and apologize and retract, which I believe is could be a step towards suing. But this is, again, being a legal matter, I cannot comment on it. And I think things will unfold as they do, and we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I definitely, HAF will need support, and I urge everyone to join HAF and support in the fight, because they are not fighting only one entity. They are fighting 6 entities in that message that you shared with me. So that's important. Dineshji, yeah. I wanted to ask you something different. My question was, are we Hindus, the first generation Hindus in India, in the US? I'm part of the first generation, but not necessarily the first generation, because I came as an expat in this country. I did not, so my position, my status in coming to this country was very different. But the first generation Indians who came here, they came with $6 and $8 in their pocket. That's all that Reserve Bank of India allowed them at that time. And they have harrowing stories of how people started their life here. And they are success stories. So their formative stages in the life in the US was spent building up. And the country offered that opportunity without interference from the government. No reservation, no arakshan, go and do, work hard, make your living, the American dream. They fulfilled it. So although in my definition of things, American dream is not about a Ferrari and a beachfront house in Hamptons. It's about a respectful life, a professional life that you can lead without interference from the state. That was what it all meant to them. So they did well. In the process, there was one thing about the Indian mindset, was that we always wanted to be like the West, the Gora people. We had that mental slavery of that kind, that we were made to believe that Gora was superior to everything dark skin. And so the Indian-born confused Desis, I call them that generation, India-born confused Desis, they came here to make their living. They forgot they became like the West Americans. They were very happy that their children were American-born confused Desis, because they had no roots, seemingly no moorings in their past, their history, their culture, their tradition. They had abandoned that and come here. They ended up being Hindus in name only now. So even though the Biden administration has so many people in the government, there is one particular train that I see is the stopping of the vaccine thing. I'm making a little bit of a track shift, because that's the most important thing happening today, that Mr. Price, who is the senior government official in the US administration, He bluntly told the press conference that when he was asked this question, that are you guys putting restrictions on export of critical raw materials for vaccine making in India, and India has the second or the third round happening of corona, he said that we have to take care of our people first. And I was immediately
Yeah.
struck by that. That was Trump's philosophy, America first. And they poo-pooed him. Today, India was the first exporter of coronavirus vaccines to everywhere, many countries. They owe personal gratitude to him. India earned tremendous amount of clout on that account, respect on that account. Today, India needs it, and they are not. America is playing hooky. What's going on here? This
Okay.
also is a
So
pointer to the fact that attack on things India and things Hindu, because BJP is a Hindu government and it is being accused of being a Hindu. Modi ji is accused of indulging in Hindutva things. Your thoughts on this?
yeah, thank you, Vibhuti Ji, for inviting me for your show first time here, and I will definitely will be looking forward to it. So let me answer a few things. Topmost point topic is about the vaccine because of the COVID situation in India. So let's go over the facts. So uh, there is certain ingredients which are required, which are sourced from several countries, and one of them is coming from USA. So that one is required for the manufacturing of the or in the capacity in which manufacturing is done in India, because India does around 1 billion doses a year compared to other nations. So it seems they can ramp up that in 2-3 months. It will take 2-3 months, and they can do that. But there are some restrictions. So this particular thing has come at the right time, but the politics and the media around it has been put in a big spin, because this pharmaceutical industry is an interdependent world around the world. And the other story is from Germany. Merkel made a remark saying that why did we allow India to be part of the global vaccination program, as a Germany being a pharmaceutical giant of the world. Okay, so these are the kind of topics which are coming out now. Why now? So there are some hints on India and Modi being the government, and at this point, it is convenient to kind of push it on the other side. So the attack is uh, too much all around. But coinciding with the other attacks on Hindus, Hindu Americans, and overall general, global situation, it all is coming together at the same point, and it is showing as if that problem is India, Hindus are the problem, and all that. That's the kind of image or the perceptions they want to show. Okay, so that the media can change it or whatever it is. But let's come to the hard fact on geopolitics. What the geopolitics, the way the game is, the first wave has happened across the world, but this seems to be a bio warfare, okay, across the world in every country. What is the cause? What is that is still yet to be figured out, and of course, China's name has come up at the top of the list. But the bio warfare is something very dangerous, and countries are still trying to figure that out. So in this situation, every country will first protect itself. It's called as a defense. Okay, so like a war strategy. First, they will have to defend themselves, which includes safety of their citizens. So we have to look at it in that way. So USA is trying to protect itself in the second, third, and fourth wave. It's supposed to be fourth wave up till 2022, end of 2022. This is what my some doctors I have talked to up till summer of 2022, but it could be till end. So there is a statement from Indian Defense, somewhere, some tweet I saw today, that they are talking about preparation until 2022 and 2023 also. So this is something huge. We never saw that. These are all going on in the background, which is not coming in the news openly directly. Okay, so we are talking about a huge, huge global impact, and production of vaccine will be a big picture. So currently in this situation, currently in the last 2-3 weeks and or 1 month, so what US has done has impacted India, and what India is doing internally and what India has done by exporting to other countries, 70 countries, this is completely has changed the picture. What has India done by exporting to 70 countries first time? We knew India does export, but malaria or polio vaccine or those kind of vaccines. But in this case, which is a pandemic case, vaccine coming out of India, Indian brand name first time is beating the global brand name, established brand names of the world, Western brands. This is the key thing. So this attack is directly on the Indian brands, Indian brand, Indian vaccination production, and Indian vaccine actually being discovered or researched and discovered and manufactured in India. This is the difference first time. Okay. So we are actually in the leading place, but the ingredients for them can be stopped. And that can put the entire production of India and Indian priorities and India gaining advantage. All this can be suddenly put under a back end. That way, the credit,
So
they want to take the credit, the West.
the message that you are conveying is very simple, that the rest of the world is finding it hard to accept India in its own playground. So there is no even playing ground for India. I mean, you better be wherever you are, we will take care of you, or don't bother us, right? So the rise of India is irksome to the rest of the world.
Exactly. Absolutely. As India grows
the rise of India is irksome because it is straightaway challenging the Western economic might. And coronavirus is playing into that part. So
geopolitics, accept.
Geopolitical. Dr. Rasita Vishnuram. So you are also, specialist in public affairs and Indic researcher. That's how you define yourself. I'm reverting back to this particular issue of Hinduism being under threat. And one of the things that comes to my mind is to ask Hindus themselves, what do you know about Hinduism? Are you in a position to defend yourself? Because unless and until you know how to defend yourself, know what it is, you can't defend the unknown, right? That's the biggest challenge that Hindus face. And we are the people who, the first generation, we do not know many of our systems, prathas, and varieties of things about our own belief system. I have been to Guruvayur too in my Kerala visit. This beard is a growth of the Guruvayur in Kerala. When I went there many years ago, those days they used to have a very poor quality blade, and I used to get rashes here. So I asked my friend Satya, what is all this dressed up black and beard? And he said, this is the people have taken a vow that on a particular day they will go to the Guruvayur temple and do all the thing. I said, done. Me too. I also became part of that. The beard grew since then. This beard is as old as that. So it has been on my face since 1977. But there is an understanding of that. I had no problem in relating with Sabrimala because I'm a Hindu. Because in Vaidyanath Dham in Bihar, people used to take the Kamar, as they used to call, and walk to Ganesh Shiva temple in Vaidyanath Dham. I understood the thing immediately. So there is an enormous commonality of purpose in Hindu faith. Whoever you pray, whatever you worship. But there are certain things which we do not know. The concepts of Hinduism is not clear with us. Where do you think we miss out on?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Vibhuti Ji. It's a very valid question that you've asked to us. As Indians, where are we lacking? How have we not understood the Indian philosophy or the Hindu aspect of the aspect of being a Hindu? Who is a Hindu? Why am I a Hindu? So the first thing is, I would say that, like you mentioned, Indian-born confused Desis, when they landed here, they did not have ideological moorings. They forgot about their culture and they came back here because they wanted to look for greener pastures. They wanted to build a more stable economic life for themselves. And the children succeeding, the next generation are ABCDs, like you mentioned. So the problem is inculcating the values to kids at a very young age. Unless the parents are able to instill values, talk to kids about what is Hinduism. Hinduism is a conundrum of things. Because first of all, as Hindus, we are ourselves not very clear on what Hinduism is, because it is a very diverse culture. Is it civilizational? Is it cultural? Is it regional? Or what exactly does Hinduism entail? Because Hinduism is a religion which widely encompasses a lot of things. You can actually be an atheist and be a Hindu. It's it's quite what do you say? It's quite ironical for people. You know, people like, oh, how can I be an atheist? Because there is somebody called Charaka, and he follows this. So there are a lot of systems in Hinduism. It is up to the individual. What is the vasana of the individual? How does the individual want to actually look for self realization? So, that is one of the parts of Hinduism. If you look at the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, the binding principles of Hinduism. If we understand these four things, I think we can grasp what Hinduism is in totality. That is something which needs to be conveyed to the uh, Indian kids who are being raised here. They have to feel pride in the Indian culture. And how do we do that as parents? We have to tell them that this is a festival. If, whichever part of India you're from, I'm from Kerala. So recently I had Vishu. So you tell them, you know, what do you do on Vishu? Why is Vishu celebrated? Similarly, Tamil Nadu, Chitrakani, why is Chitrakani celebrated? If you take Andhra, Ugadi. So you explain to the kids what a religious, why is it a religious function or festival celebrated. Allow them to be a part of it, experience it. Then they will have pride, because these children are not educated, they're not informed about what Hinduism is. They think it's unscientific. But every aspect of Hinduism, of Hindu religion, is very scientific. It can be clinically and with scientific temperament, it can be understood very clearly. So the first step is to educate and empower our kids, make them understand why we follow certain aspects of Hinduism. Sit down with them, have a talk with them, make it clear to them. That is the way forward.
Thank you very much. And you brought about the issue of education and teaching. So Hindu American Foundation is doing an enormous job in terms of protecting the rights and privileges, and also the advocacy that you do in Washington, D.C. And I know that many Hindu temples in New York area, they do Hindu classes for children, Sanskrit classes for children. But there are concepts. That's for us. So while the children are studying, there are certain concepts need to be clear in our own mind. And for example, Atithi Devo Bhava is wonderful concept. But if there is a barbarian at the gate who is here to chop my neck off, at that time, he is certainly not Devo. How do we respond to these concepts? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. These two words are flaunted. That whole world is a village, but it's not. The whole world is not a family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam does not mean a family or a community. Kutumba is a Sanskrit word, has many meanings, interpretation of that. But what it means here, that the whole earth is one, sun is one, water is H2O, there is oxygen, there is everything that flows out of there is God given. In that sense, we are all one. That is the way Vasudhaiva is Kutumbakam. But in families, there are fights, sibling rivalry, parents, brothers, everybody fights all the time. So it is not a happy situation as a family if you look at it. Uncle Joe may be sitting in jail, not working at all, but you have to give him a share. Or otherwise, that's a very important concept of family, that there is a bonding, there is a relationship, but there is a particular point in time when the families split. Brothers, sisters marry, they have their own composite unit. Loyalties change, alignments change. So, like I always mention, that my brother might love my son more than I love him. Possibility, of course. But I do not expect him to sacrifice his child's life to save mine. It's unrealistic. That's what you have to understand about family. So, what educational efforts are we making, Rajivji? Whether Hindu American Foundation has the time to do that or organizational strength. So what is your strength and where are you suffering? And what would you like for Hindus to respond, Indians to respond to HAF? or many more organizations to develop. Let Hinduism arise. Your thoughts?
So, Vibhuti, you're asking a very big question, and let me see if I can do justice to it in the time we have. I think, as Rasita ji pointed out, the enormity of wisdom texts that we have, the 5,000 years of documented heritage that we benefit from and dip into, is such a vast library, if one could be set up, that what becomes occasionally very challenging is to distill down the essence of our identity, of our culture, of our religion in terms simple enough that can hold attention of a 10-year-old or of a 15-year-old, or can be interesting for, let's say, a TSA agent or a police officer, so that they make the effort to learn something about the Hindu Americans that they are out there to serve or protect. So the effort at HAF has always been to research our heritage and bring it down into words simple enough that can not only be taken to classrooms in their authenticity, maintaining that authenticity, but can then also be taken to various agencies like law enforcement, or can be taken to our lawmakers and policymakers and make them understand what our heritage is, what do we care about. So that is one sort of effort. The other sort of effort is, and I'll give an example, which is that a question Hindus often ask is that, oh, well, Rajeev, didn't you wish me New Year on Diwali? And I said, yep, I did. But you then wished me New Year again on Ugadi. I'm like, yeah, I did. And you did New Year again on Baisakhi. I'm like, yeah, that too. So what is this Hindu New Year, right? So again, sort of is an arm of what I just said. But the point is, how do we bring the 2,000 miles worth of geographical richness in how we celebrate our festivals, how we celebrate nature and events around us, how we bring it all together so that people or Hindus from various parts of not only India, but also from countries like Mauritius and Fiji can understand what our festivals are for. How do we distill that down? So that is where HAF's effort has been. Now, what I would like to see happen is that with all the effort and brain power that has been put behind, if you go to hinduamerican.org, which is HAF's website, again, it is hinduamerican.org, there is a lot of material out there, which is, by the way, standards compliant for middle schools or for elementary schools, that you can just take. It's well researched. You can just take and start to use it not just as educational material if you do homeschooling, but also for if your kids go to public school, you can just use it for them to kind of start learning about our identity, the Hindu culture, about India itself, about our festivals. And that I wish our parents find more time for as well. But more importantly, I think it is also a good resource for the IBCDs to educate themselves about who we are, so that they can represent our dharma, our religion, our culture, our heritage, our history to the Westerners or anybody else who is interested. Case in point is what happened with Article 370 or CAA. I come across many Indians often who are not able to explain the history of Kashmir to their own friends, let alone to the policymakers. I still come across Indians who are not able to explain to anybody why CAA is not taking away rights of anybody in the country. Rather, it is an effort to save the religiously persecuted from the neighboring countries, right? So the point is that there is so much material which is well researched by scholars available at hinduamerican.org that I wish people could dip into and utilize more and amplify.
Thank you so much for articulating that thought process that people must visit your
Yeah.
website to know. And Dinesh, I wanted to take off on that particular theme. And I'm talking about Indians are and Hindus are under attack, which is a known thing. I don't want to go into the specifics of the attack. My thought process is, why is it so? And I gave a little bit of a thought to it, and for whatever it is worth. And I realized that, we are Sanatanis. We are Hindus, have the name given to us. It's not our name. Just as India was a name given to us, it was Aryavart and Bharat. So our narrative is not written by us. We are defined by others. And what I found was, and I felt was, and I talked with some people about, verifying, authenticating my theory. I realized that Sanatana Dharma has an enormous scientific base to it because it's all about nature, universal principles. So, is it possible that the advancement in science and technology is breaking the basic foundation of religion? Religion was not created by God. It's a man-made institution, human-made institution. If I'm politically correct, I'll say human-made institution, right? God did not create religion, people did. Thus, there is so many imperfections in it. It's based on fear and ignorance. Earth is flat. Women are responsible for giving a male child for continuation of dynasties, right? Thunder and lightning happened because Gabbar Singh is angry. I mean, God is angry. That's why he was bringing thunder and lightning. But we know thunder and lightning don't happen because Gabbar Singh called God was angry with you. It's a geographical, natural phenomenon. And as people are becoming more and more aware, this has no monopoly of Islam, Christianity, Judaism, or Hinduism, whoever made it. Likewise, when you go to a doctor, there is no speciality about Muslim cancer being milder than Hindu cancer or the Hindu ulcer being better than Islamic cancer, ulcer. Migraine has same thing. Is the development of science and technology leading the thinkers to believe that this will lead to the rise of Sanatana Dharma, which also accepts atheists as normal? We have no problem with it.
Very good point you have raised.
So do you think it is the fear of the rise of Hinduism? And I believe this is India's century. It's for us to lose.
So, very good points. Let me give you my thought process because I have discussed and thought about this quite a long time. So let us go to the past 60 years. What happened in the 60 years?
And keep your point within 2 to 3 minutes. That's all I want to request.
Correct. Sure. I'll do that. So 60 years, what happened? Quickly, I will do that. India, basically, Indian value system or our Indian philosophy or Hindu system spread widely in the world. First is the freedom movement. Freedom movement is not just simple for India. Freedom movement is actually breaking up the global colonial system. Okay, and it resulted in 200 more countries getting freedom. That is extremely important, and it is a Hindu nationalism of India which brought in. Okay, that is a key point here. And the Hindu system or the Hindu knowledge system spread widely and got adopted inside a Western system. If you look at some of the videos now, one expert talking about saying that the West was tamed and enlightened with the Hinduism and the Hindu philosophy. That is the key point here. So all things happened over the last 200 years because of the colonial system. But what happened in the 60s is enormous. And at the same time, you showed the cell phone. Cell phone is the biggest connectivity of humans in the world, which has happened in the last 100 years. Okay, so the demographic change, connectivity of the people, and all the human value. So United Nations has the human rights, where it has taken from the Hindu system of giving human rights to women, children, and all kinds of beings, which is a totally different from what they had before. Okay, all these are coming together at the same time, which is unprecedented. This change for a lot of other countries, like especially from the Middle East and from a lot of Orthodox and very conservative societies, they are unable to accept everything all at the same time. This is a shocker. And India was dominant in culture and philosophy over the last 50 years. One French guy in a comment said that India is indestructible. Its philosophy and its culture, civilization will continue. This is a key thing that they are afraid of. This is what they are afraid of.
So
And
you
the
agree
attack
with me?
comes.
You agree with my thought process that it is not Hindu phobia, but a fear of Hindus or the Sanatan Dharma that is kind of creating a feeling that, as it is, there's the rise of atheism in the West, right? People are not talking about God anymore. People have begun to question. If God was so kind, why did he bring about tsunami? Why have thousands of people died there? These are the questions. But Rasita ji, coming to you about this thought process, there is one thing about our belief system, and I feel it that way. So I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, please say so. Don't just accept it because I'm saying that. But this is my feeling that societies, somewhere along the line, pamper the claimants to victimhood and the claimants of grievances. I noticed that Hindus are the least grievance driven people. We don't claim ourselves to be victim. We don't demand that serve my kind of food or my way of life. We accommodate and we adjust very easily. Our capacity to adjust and accommodate in the environment that we go in is, I think, is phenomenal. But at the same time, but by not asserting ourselves, we allow ourselves to be taken for granted. These are the words in psychodynamics. They say that crying baby gets more milk. And I take back to the original statement which I made when the senator told me, and you ask for nothing. So as a result of which we get taken for granted. But we are not that type. It's not in our DNA to be always falling and claiming to be victims. That's why people like Rajiv through HAF have to go for advocacy that, hey, we are not like this, we are like this, we are different, we pray to whatever is possible. Your thoughts on this matter, that we can't become victims, we will not claim victimhood, but we want to assert ourselves. Has that time come to assert ourselves that, hey, don't accuse me of what I'm not? And that's what we need to fight against. We have to stand up. And there is one thing which I'll tell you here, talking about geopolitical part of it. When 2019, we observed the exodus of Kashmiris from in 1990, 30 years, as many years, 50 years we celebrated, observed here. All Kashmiri Pandits said, and it's a great thing to happen, that not one Kashmiri Pandit facing the seventh exodus in their lifetime in 1990 did anybody become violent. That's a matter of pride. But we live in America where fight is a very common, acceptable proposition. From Trump to Democrats, everybody saying we are going to fight like hell for their own position, right? So fighting like hell is a lexicon in American language. So when I shared that thought with my American friends, you know what they said? That's truly awesome. But you mean to say nobody fought back? Forget about the 500,000 Kashmiri Pandits. They may have had their own compulsions. But you are a country of 80% Hindus. You mean to say not a single Hindu revolted against that? You didn't fight back against that atrocity? That's the thought I'm asking you to comment upon.
I totally agree with whatever you said, Vibhuti Ji. Unfortunately, Hindus have been in this for the past so many decades, been on the defensive. We have been constantly guilt tripped. We've been constantly asked to step back. While every aspect of our religion has been attacked, be it our culture, be it our festivals, be it anything, they have constantly attacked us, the media, or take, for example, a festival like Holi. Uh, they immediately before the Holi starts, there is a whole propaganda around Holi festival saying that don't waste water, the animals are going to be affected, be careful. Take any festival in India, only the Hindu festivals. That is something which there is a lot of propaganda around it. And as Hindus, we don't feel the need to be assertive. We have been somehow uh, boxed into being secular. Secularism has been touted in India, and we have somehow got into that circle, this vicious circle, thinking that, oh, I should not protest, I should not say, just lay down, bend over, and take whatever people are saying. But that's not the right attitude. As Hindus, if we do not defend our culture, if we are not assertive, if we do not stand up for what we believe in, if we are not going to stand up for our values, we are not going to stand up for festivals, for our culture, who else is going to do it? If you look at the world over, everybody is fighting to keep their culture intact. So why should we as Hindus stay behind? It's right that we have not played into the victim game at all. Like you mentioned, Kashmiris. The Kashmiris, not one single person has become a militant. But that's the same narrative that the other part of the world says, that because, oh, this thing happened, so that is why the Muslims have become terrorists. But Hindus, you won't see anywhere. They have actually taken it in their stride, got educated, went on with their lives, and tried to set up things in that manner. But today, I think it's not enough. We as Hindus need to actually stand up for our civilizational values and fight for it. Because if we are not going to do it, nobody is going to do it for us. So it's essential that whether there is any topic, whether it is like Rajiv ji mentioned, the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir, or whether the Citizen Amendment Act, or the Farmers' Bill narrative, which is happening currently, any of these topics that are being discussed in the media and which are being willfully, what do you say, they are willfully being misrepresented, that needs to be corrected. That narrative needs to be corrected. And we as Hindus need to stand up and say that this is what it is. We need to say, this is right, this is wrong. So I think only unless we stand up and assert ourselves will we be taken as somebody who can be at the high table and who can actually people will listen to. That's something that we have to actually do.
Thank you, because you use the word assert a couple of times, and I have coined the phrase 4 A's for Hindus is a must: arise, awaken, assert, and act. We have to do all 4 things together. We saw the outcome of these 4 things when we fought against the abuse of swastik as a symbol. We saw when we put all the 4 A's into action. There is an action happening in the university in New Jersey against Trishke. In Chicago, we were able to defeat the anti-CAA resolution. When we began to do all the 4 A's, we see another thing happening, that HAF has filed a first ever cease and desist order and potential lawsuit if they don't cease and desist. So my question here is, again, there's something which is bothering me. And I have questioned this element with my Christian friends here. This struck me one fine morning. And I said, what exactly is freedom of religion? And I began to go deeper into that. Where does this concept come from? Why do we have this in our Indian Constitution? I'm not talking about US Constitution. I'm talking about Indian Constitution. Why does Indian Constitution have the phrase freedom of religion? Because we always had freedom of religion, right? We always had freedom of religion, whether you pray or don't. There are no mandates, there are no restrictions, there are no instructions, there's nothing laid down that you have to do this. But there is a process that if you go to the temple, you do follow certain processes to accomplish a certain puja, right? And pujas are done differently, but it doesn't say that somebody is doing puja, you have to compulsorily sit there. That leads me to the concept of freedom of religion. And I am of the view, and I'm going to talk about it more, but I want to air that thought with you here. Somewhere along the line, the freedom of religion is a Western imposition on the rest of the world. In my opinion, I have asked this question to hardcore Baptist people who are good friends. I said, do you really believe in concept of freedom of religion? Because you only believe Jesus is the only way. So what is the meaning of your concept of freedom of religion, when Jesus is the only way? That means you are not accepting my freedom of religion. And they go quiet. They begin to talk about Jesus. So I want both of you to say, all three of you, to comment upon this particular issue. Does India need to thwart and throw out the concept of freedom of religion from its constitution because we are already free? We are already practicing religion that offers freedom to every individual to pray whoever you want, whatever you want, pray or don't. You are still a wonderful human being because your actions and your karma defines you who you are. And that I give them a simple example. And I tell these guys that if you have 5 pound burger in one shot, today, your tomorrow will be bad. Even Jesus will not save your stomach for tomorrow. That's the important part for people to understand. Rajiv ji, you go first on that.
So Vibhuti ji, that is such a interesting question you have asked, that in front of me there is a predicament as to how I answer that. So I will
wish.
yeah. So I will answer it without having thought through it, because honestly I've never paid attention or thought about that, to the first gut feel that I have as somebody who was born and brought up in India, which is that that this question you are applying to or asking question of is a India which is it has at least 10 religions that I can count in it today, right? It has not only religions that are Indic, but are also now religions about close to 20% that are of Western origin, Abrahamic religions, so to say. So my short answer is that yes, freedom of religion, being the multi-religious society that India is, or multi-religious republic that India is perhaps an important constitutional aspect of India and should be retained.
That's perfectly great. I mean, what I'm talking about is the freedom of religion. There are two elements to that. One is, as you rightly mentioned, with India is home to every persecuted religion in the world, right? So we have already given freedom of religion to everybody. I'm not asking, Hindus have never asked Parsis to convert to Hinduism. Hinduism have never asked Christians to become Hindus. So we do not practice that concept of conversion. You are who you are, whatever you are. We are not coming to you to become a Hindu.
Right.
We are converting Hindus to their faith.
Yeah.
So then my thing is conversion an actual sin against God's original intent? You have beard by choice, I have beard by choice. But you are Singh and I'm Jha by birth, by creation of God's magic wand. If he wanted you to be Muhammad, he could have done it matter of blinking of an eye. If he wanted me to be Joseph, he would have made me in a Joseph family. But that didn't happen. So the freedom of religion is not in practice, but for conversion purposes. If somebody wants to become something, that's his choice. I'm all for it. But I'm against institutional effort to convert something in the freedom of religion, and that I abhor. Dinesh, your call on this one. You had 3 minutes time to think about it.
Thank you. So I will explain from a legal point of view. Yeah. Religion, as defined, as you pointed out, India. So the religion is taken from the constitution, which has come from the colonial period. Okay, so that's something which Indians are still working through its way, with the Dharma and everything becoming the main topic of the discussion and even Supreme Court decisions are being carefully looked at and everything. So a lot of interpretation is going on. So we will finally reach some place where Hindu Dharma will be protected. Okay, somewhere it will be there, whatever you may call it, Hindutva, whatever it is. But from a point of view of whether freedom of religion is allowed from a legal point of view, so Indian Constitution provides that and everything. But how it is being done in India, and what is that religion? Just opposing Hinduism becomes another religion. So a lot of these things have been taken out of context. Political parties have come into this picture instead of being a personal choice, because the religion of the West or the Abrahamic religions are actually political organizations. Okay, political front. They're not really the religion, so-called religion, have we defined in India or in our Eastern world. This is something we need to understand. It took me a lot of reading to come to this point. Okay, so that is the difference. So when they say religion, it's actually a political organization having rights in the political system, and rights in doing things, rights in converting other groups into their fold. These are the different rights. In America, there are 27,000 churches. Do you know this? I did not understand what is this. They are all constantly working towards to be, which is the dominant part. Same thing in all other countries. Islam, world, Middle East, we know that. In India, they are doing their work in a different way and looking at Indians who are unaware of all these legal terms and political sense of the religion, only using different concept, they are able to take it. So this freedom of religion is in a bad practice in India, and it has to be cleaned up, either through political process education or through legal means by cutting it off with this money flow and other stuff for some time, and then doing it in a proper way. Okay, so there is a lot of
That's
these things
very,
have
very
to be
well
cleaned
said.
up.
What I wanted to say that you talk about this entire thing. Punjab is going to have the fourth largest church ever built. The Sikhs are getting converted to Christianity and they're embracing that. There's a political part of it.
No.
That
That
shows
is
their
the money.
asylum in America. That's another part.
That's a pathway to get the visa to go to
Yes,
the West. That is what the reason is.
that's
That's how the money is coming there.
correct. Rasita ji, same question to you, your thought on it. And I again clarify that. I don't mean to say freedom of religion as a constitutional right that everybody can practice. That's one thing. But do we Hindus need to have that part of our life in the sense which I answered to Rajiv ji? India has never had, it has had freedom of religion as Sanatani. There is no problem about anybody. So why do I have to have it? That's my question. As a constitutional measure, why do we need it? It's a point of argument and debate and a conversation. Your thought on this?
Uh, Freedom of religion is a Western construct if you look at it from the Indian point of view, because it was introduced as a separation of state from church. It was essential because in Western countries, the church interfered in every aspect of politics. In India, that was not the in India when the kings were ruling or post independence. That's not something that was a part of the Indian legacy. So there is actually no need to put it in the constitution that there needs to be a definite separation of religion and state affairs. It has always been a mix. If you look at Indian kings, their advisors used to be Raja Rishis. They used to be the rishis who used to advise them. So it was a part of the construct itself. Post independence, they introduced this term of secularism, which has been a huge pain for us. Okay, let's agree with secularism. If you want to separate state from the religion, but look at the irony in India. If you look at Indian secularism, it is actually pseudo secularism. I want to emphasize on that point because only in India you will find that temples, Hindu temples, are under government control. The churches or the mosques, they are with the community, with the Christian community or with the Muslim community. It's only the Indian temples under the stranglehold of government. So when you're saying something like you want to be a secular state, you want to separate it, why is the government interfering in Hindu temples? That's a point that I want to really emphasize on, and I want people to think about it. If Hindu temples are not something which is a government property, or it's not something which has to be run merely by employees or by Devasam board or endowment board or anything. The community, the devotees, they have the first say. They are the people who will have whatever needs to be done for the temple. It cannot have any other claimants. If you truly claim to be a secular state, then look up and ask, why are Hindu temples being controlled by the government?
Thank you. I mean, there are many ramifications of that. I'm talking about, Rajiv, I agree with you on this matter that given the fact that there are plethora of religious beliefs in India, everybody must feel that they have the right to prosper within their faith without the imposition of Hinduism on them, right? Not they are not, they don't have to be converting to Hinduism, which Hinduism has never done. That's my point in this that I'm trying to drive at. Hinduism has never sought to convert people to embrace Hinduism. Instead, we have always said if you believe in Sanatan principles, you don't have to leave your faith. Believe in Sanatan principles. That's where Sanatan
So,
principles are one step ahead of the religion. And that's where we have failed to convey to the world
yeah.
is that be as you are. Don't tell me I'm wrong. That's what I tell people. You want to
So,
believe.
Vibhuti ji, I think there are multiple aspects to the point you are raising. One is showcasing the Sanatani principles of Hinduism and thereby demonstrating that freedom of religion is not a concern to us because historically it has never been.
Right.
Uh, but there's this other practical aspect as well, which is that the backdrop to your assertion or to your question is a country that has 75% Hindus today. If we look at around the world, the state of affairs of Hindus in countries like Fiji, in countries like Suriname or Malaysia, where they are in minority, imagine an India 50 years from now where Hindus will not be 75%. Imagine an India of 100 years from now where Hindus are probably going to be a minority. It is in those times or in those situations that the value of freedom of religion will be very important. So yes, I agree with you that there are Sanatani principles that we should showcase and maybe remind the world that we never felt the need of religion or freedom of religion for 4,000 years or 5,000 years. It's been only a 70-year-old concept. But at the same time, it is a provision of Constitution of India that I think is meant to protect the liberty of religion for every Indian, regardless of their faith and religion. And unfortunately, given the global trends that we see today around the world of religious persecution, will come to rescue of Hindus when they are minority in India.
Oh, so you are already assuming the Hindus being a minority in India?
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Really?
We know that.
At least it will not happen in my lifetime, hopefully not. And I hope it doesn't happen in my son's lifetime and your children and Rasita's children's life, then we become minorities in our own case. That's where I was talking about. You virtually agreed with me here, and I'm glad you did, that Hindus are indeed facing an existential threat if we don't become prepared to deal with it. That's exactly the point which I'm talking about. So, what do we do? Where do we go from here? So, the question here is we will talk about this more because this issue needs to be dwelt upon as much as possible because this is an issue of survival. And as I always say, whether you are vegan, vegetarian, or ahimsa ke param pujari, it's my favorite theme, you have to be prepared when the barbarian is at the gate in any form. And that's where, Rajivji, you made me a believer in my theory. Thank you very much. That, the freedom of religion as a concept will eventually save Hindus from extinction. But will it? Will it matter? Gentlemen, friends who are watching this show, thank you very much for being here. Like every conversation has to come to an end because we are time bound. So have a great weekend. Be well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rajiv ji, for giving your thought, making me believe in my own theory. That was great. Rasita ji, such a lovely pleasure to have you here and to express your thoughts and meeting you for the first time. And Dinesh ji disappeared. Well, I suppose we will meet again. And technology plays hooky with many of us many times. So be that as it may. Have a great weekend, both of you, and Dinesh ji as well. And see you again soon.